Shalom, Israel.
Shalom, Israel.
Shalom, shalom. Hey, I'm here. We're going to do another video. It's a breakdown for Romans 11 to show who the Gentiles really are. Because we've been taught based on this particular chapter that the Gentiles are the northern kingdom. And so we're going to go through scriptures, like the scripture says, search the scriptures and see if it's so. So we're going to go through the scriptures and see if, in fact, these Gentiles that is mentioned here in Romans 11, if they are the Gentiles, meaning the northern kingdom, or if they are Gentiles in the true form of Gentiles being the heathens or the Gentiles that are the other nations. So we're going to go into the scriptures and see if it's so. Can you give me Romans 11, verse 1 through 3? We'll start there.
Romans chapter 11, verses 1 through 3, and it reads, I say then, hath Elohim cast away his people? Elohim forbid. For I am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Verse 2, Elohim hath not cast away his people, which he foreknew. What ye not what the scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh intercession to Elohim against Israel, saying, Yahweh, they have killed my prophets and dig down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life.
This is Paul. So first out the gate, Paul says he's an Israelite of the seed of Abraham and the tribe of Benjamin. So he poses a question. He says, has Yahweh cast away his people, which he foreknew? Will he not, what the scriptures say of Elias, how he make an intercession to Yahweh against Israel, saying. So he's posing this question, has the Most High cast away his people? So he says right here, Yahweh forbid, right? So let's get some scriptures to find out if in fact he's cast away his people. Give me 1 Samuel 12 and verse 22. All
right, 1 Samuel chapter 12, verse 22, and it reads, For Yahweh will not forsake his people for his great name's sake, because it hath pleased Yahweh to make you his people.
So it says right here, for Yahweh will not forsake his people for his great name's sake. But it hath pleased Yahweh to make you his people. So when he says in Romans 11, have Yahweh cast away his people, right here, he's saying that no, that the Most High is not forsaking his people, right? Let's get that again. Let me get Psalms 95, verse 14. Because he said he has not forsaken his people, right? Psalms 95 and verse 14.
Okay, that only goes to 11. 95 only goes to verse 11.
Sorry, first 95 and 14.
Psalms 95, verse 14?
Psalms 95 and 14.
Okay, 95. I'm looking at verse chapter
94 to 14.
94, verse 14. Psalms chapter 94, verse 14, and it reads, For Yahweh will not cast away off his people, neither will he forsake his inheritance.
So again, he said he will not cast away his people because Israel is his inheritance, right? Give me another one, Isaiah 41, verse 8 and 9.
Isaiah chapter 41, verse 8 and 9. But thou, Israel, art my servant Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. Thou whom I have taken from the ends of the earth, and called thee from the chief men thereof, and say unto thee, Thou art my servant, I have chosen thee, and not cast thee away.
So he said he had chosen us. We know Deuteronomy 7:6 say he chose us above all people, above people unto himself. So right here it says he has not cast away his people, right? So let's go back to Romans 11, and we're going to continue on. Give me verse 4. Because he says he has not cast away his people, right? Go ahead.
Romans chapter 11, verse 4. But what saith the answer of Elohim unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. Verse 5. Even so then, at this present time, also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. And if by grace, then it is no more of works. Otherwise, grace is no more grace. But if it be of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more work. Verse 7. What then, Israel, have not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded.
So verse 7 says that the rest were blinded because we've been taught doctrines of men. And because of these doctrines of men, Israel, most of Israel, has been blinded to the truth of the word, right? Verse 5 said, even so then at this present time, also there's a remnant according to the election of grace. So there's a remnant of his people that are seeking the truth of his word, that are seeking the true words of what the Most High said, and not being led astray by the doctrines of men, or being led astray by being tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine, right? Because when we came into the truth initially, I believe that this chapter is what they told us it was. I believe that at first. But when we go into the scriptures and it says, study to show yourself approved, a workman needed not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. So if the scriptures implies that we can rightly divide the word, it also implies that we can wrongly divide the word as well. So it says verse 5 said there's a remnant according to the election of grace. And so verse 7 again says, what then, Israel, have not obtained that which he seeketh for, the election have he obtained it, and the rest were blinded. So like I said, we're blinded by the doctrines of men. We've been taught all types of things. We've been taught, like I said, with this chapter, that the Gentiles are the northern kingdom. So that's why we're doing this video. We're going to go in to see if it's so, right? Go ahead, verse 8 up.
Verse 8. Romans chapter 11, verse 8. According as it is written, Elohim hath given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear unto this day. Verse 9. And David said, let their table be made a snare, and a trap, and a stumbling block, and a recompense unto them.
So because of the doctrines that we've been taught, it says right here, they've become a snare to us, they become a trap to us, and they become a stumbling block. Because we're learning the precepts, not the precepts of the Most High, but we're learning the precepts of men. Give me Isaiah 29. It's Isaiah 29, because it said they become a stumbling block and a snare and a trap to us, because we're not going by thus saith the Most High. We've received the doctrines of men, and we take that above what thus saith the Most High said, right? Isaiah 29 and verse 10.
Verse 10. Isaiah chapter 29, verse 10, and it reads, for Yahweh hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes, the prophets and your rulers, the seers hath he covered. Keep going. Verse 11, and the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed.
Verse 12.
And the book is delivered unto him that is not learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he said, I am not learned. Keep going.
Verse 13.
Okay, verse 13. Wherefore Yahweh said, for as much as this people draw near me with their mouth, and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men.
So it's taught by the precepts of men. So like he said, verse 10 said, Yahweh had poured out upon us a spirit of deep sleep. Because if we want to receive the words of men, then the Most High is going to we have free will. We can receive the words of men. So that's why I said he had put a deep sleep upon us, right? And we've learned the precepts of men, like it says in verse 13. Wherefore Yahweh said, for as much as this people draw near to me with their mouth and their lips do honor me, but they remove their heart or their understanding, their mind far from him, and the fear towards them has been taught by the precepts of men. So we're learning things and doctrines and receiving doctrines that's not of the Most High. Go back to Romans 11.
Romans chapter 11,
verse 9 again.
verse 9. And David saith, let their table be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them.
Right.
Verse 10, let their eyes be darkened that they may not see, and bow down their back always.
Verse 11.
Verse 11, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Elohim forbid, but rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles for to provoke them to jealousy.
Can you give me the definition in Strong's Concordance for Gentiles? Because verse 11 says, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? So just like Paul asked the question up in the top of the chapter, he said, yeah, has Yahweh cast away his people that he foreknew? So we went into a couple of scriptures and he said he have not cast away his people. So he posed a question down here. He says, have I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Yahweh forbid. So he said they stumbled, but they didn't fall to the point where they're not able to come back to the truth of the word and come back to the Most High, right? It says, but rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles to provoke them to jealousy. Now, this verse right here is where the understanding of this whole chapter goes completely wrong, because they take this Gentiles and they say that these Gentiles here is talking about the northern kingdom opposed to the southern kingdom being here in this particular chapter, right? So go ahead and give me the definition for Gentiles, and I'm gonna show on the board what the Gentiles is that he reads.
Gentiles is 1484 ethnos, and it means a race, a nation, the nations as distinct from Israel, a race of people, a race, people, nation, the nations, heathen world, Gentiles.
There's a race distinct from Israel, the heathen world, or the Gentiles. So right here in verse 11, the Gentiles they're talking about right here is not talking about Northern Kingdom, right? And it says, have they through the fall of through their fall, meaning both the Northern and the Southern Kingdom, salvation is coming to the Gentiles to provoke them to jealousy, right? So give me a precept for that. Give me Deuteronomy 32:21, because this was prophesied back then before the split, because we know the split came about in Kings under Jeroboam and Jeroboam, when the kingdom split between the northern and southern kingdom, right? So when it says that salvation is coming to the Gentiles to provoke them to jealousy, this was prophesied before the split of the northern and southern kingdom, right? Can you give me that?
Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 21, and it reads, they have moved me to jealousy with that which is not Elohim. They have provoked me to anger and their vanities, with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation.
He's going to move them to jealousy with a people that's not a people. He's going to provoke them to anger. So read that again, that last part.
I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation.
With a foolish nation, right? Let's go back to Romans 11. Pick it up at verse 12.
Romans 11, verse 12. Now, if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? For I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify my office. If by any means I may provoke to immolation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them.
So Paul says right here, he says in verse 13, for I speak to you Gentiles, as much as I'm the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify my office. And he says in verse 14, if by any means I may provoke them to emulation, them which are my flesh, And we know according to Romans, what is that, Romans 9,
Verse 9, 3 and 4.
verse 3 and 4. Read that real quick.
Romans 9, verse 3 and 4. For I could wish that myself were cursed from Hamashiach for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh. Verse 4, who are Israelites.
He says he says who are Israelites according to his flesh. So when he talks about right here, he said, I speak to you Gentiles, like the brother just read, Gentiles is ethnos 1484. It is not talking about the northern kingdom. It is talking about Gentiles in the sense of heathens, of the sense of not being Israelites, right? Anybody that's not an Israelite is a Gentile, whether they be what people would say, Esau, the white man, the Chinese man, the African, whatever it is. If you're a non-Israelite, you are a Gentile in the truest form, right? Give me verse 15.
Romans chapter 11, verse 15. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? Verse 16. For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches.
All right. So it says, if the first fruit be holy, so are the branches. So give me Revelation 22 and 16, so we can see who the first fruit is. Because it said, if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy, and the root be holy, so are the branches. So when we find out who the first fruit is, we're going to go back and see exactly who these branches are. Go ahead.
Revelation chapter 22, verse 16.
Khan.
Okay. I, Hamashiach, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root of the offspring of David and the bright and morning star.
So Hamashiach is the root of David, the bright and morning star, right? And it says right here in verse 16, it referring to the branches, right? Let's find out who the branches are. Give me Jeremiah 11, verse 16 and 17. Jeremiah 11, verse 16 and 17, to see who the branches are. If the branches are, in fact, just the northern kingdom, or if it's just the southern kingdom, or if, in fact, if it's both kingdoms. Jeremiah 11, verse 16 and 17.
All right, Jeremiah chapter 11, starting at verse 16. Yahweh called thy name, a green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruit. With the noise of a great tumult, he hath kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. Verse 17. For the Yahweh of hosts that planted thee have pronounced evil against thee, for the evil of the house of Israel and of the house of Judah, which they have done against themselves, to provoke me to anger in offering incense unto Baal.
So when it says that the branches are broken off, right here in verse 16, it says the branches are broken. So verse 17 tells you exactly who the branches are. It says the branches are the house of Israel, which would be the northern kingdom, and then the house of Judah, which would be the southern kingdom, right? So both of the branches are broken off. It's not just saying that the northern kingdom is broken off and the southern kingdom is still intact. It's saying, in fact, both of the branches, both kingdoms are broken off. And it says that they have provoked him to anger. Go back to Romans 11 and give me Romans 11 and verse 11 again, because it said they have provoked him to anger, right?
Romans chapter 11, verse 11. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Elohim forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy.
Well, because both of the branches was broken off, now the Gentiles are here to provoke us to jealousy. So this is why Paul says he's the apostle of the Gentiles, right? Let's pick it back up at verse 17.
Romans chapter 11, verse 17. And if some of the branches are broken off, and thou being a wild olive branch wert grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root of the fatness of the olive tree.
So it says,
Go
So it
ahead.
says, and if some of the branches be broken off. So the branches we already we saw, which was the northern and the southern kingdom. It says, so if the branches be broken off, that thou, meaning the Gentiles or the wild olive tree, were grafted in among them. You have the definition for among, because it says being grafted in among them. So they're using these pronouns, thou and them and all that. And I know today with these pronouns, it's hard to tell who's talking about who. But this right here is talking about, when it's talking about the branches be broken off, the thou that it's talking about is meaning the northern and southern kingdom. When it's talking about that they're grafted in among them, the thou is talking about the Gentiles rather, and the them is talking about the northern and the southern kingdom. So when they're using these pronouns, I know it's confusing, but we're going to use the pronouns in the right tense. So it says that were grafted in among them and were partakers of the root, meaning that they're grafted in and partakers of the root, which is Hamashiach, right? Go ahead, read the definition.
Among, the word among, the definition is in or through the midst of, surrounded by, in company or association with.
So they're associated with it because the northern and the southern kingdom have been broken off because of their unbelief, because of sin. So now salvation or has been opened up into the Gentiles. So it says that they are partakers of the root and the fatness of the olive tree, because Israel is the olive tree. When we was in Jeremiah 11, it says, Yahweh called thy name a green olive tree. So the olive tree that it's talking about is the northern and the southern kingdom. So now it says that because of their unbelief, now the Most High has opened it up to the Gentiles that they would come into the olive tree. They're the wild olive tree, and Israel is the olive tree, the green olive tree, right? Verse 18,
Romans chapter 11, verse 18. And it reads, boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root.
So he said, boast not against the branches. So he's telling you that the original tree is the olive tree, which consists of both the northern and southern kingdom. So he's saying, I'm letting you in, but don't boast against the original branches, right? Right, read.
That boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee.
He's saying that the root is bearing you. You're not bearing the root. The root is bearing you. Hamashiach is bearing you. You're not a part of the original tree, but he's bringing you in. So he said, boast not against the original branches, right? Read.
Verse 19, thou wilt say then, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in.
Or he said the branches, meaning the northern and the southern kingdom, were both broken off that the Gentiles would be able to be grafted in. Go ahead.
Verse 20, well, because of unbelief, they were broken off. And thou standest by faith, but not high-minded, but fear. For if Elohim spared not the natural branches, take heed, lest he also spare not thee.
So he said, because of the unbelief of the northern and the southern kingdom, that's the reason that they were broken off. And so he said, because they were broken off, he said, but if Yahweh spared not the natural branches, meaning the original olive tree, and he broke them off, he said, take heed that he spared not thee. So he said, don't boast against the original branches, right? Because I'm letting you in. But he's saying that the original tree belongs to Israel, both northern and southern kingdom, right? Read up.
Verse 21. For if God spared not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee. Verse 22. Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of Elohim on them which fell severity, but toward thee goodness, if thou continue in his goodness. Otherwise, thou also shalt be cut off.
He said, behold, therefore, the goodness of the severity of Yahweh on them which fell, meaning the northern and southern kingdom. This them is talking about both kingdoms. He said, which fell severity towards the goodness of thee, but goodness if thou continue in the goodness, otherwise thou also should be cut off. So he's saying he's letting you in, but if you don't continue in the things that he's called and appointed you to do, he's going to cut you off as well. Just like he cut off the original branches, he don't have no problem with cutting off the branches that are grafted in from the wild olive tree, right? Read.
Verse 23. And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted in. For Elohim is able to graft them in again.
He's able to graft them in again. Can you get the definition for again? And I want to make this point about Paul saying he's the apostle of the Gentiles. I'm gonna go back and hit that real quick. You're getting the
Again, yes. Again means another time, once more, returning to a previous position or condition.
So verse 23 says, and they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, talking about the northern and the southern kingdom, he shall graft them in, for Yahweh is able to graft them in again. Again meaning once more. So again implies, like, say, for example, if I tell the brother Nehemiah, hey, brother, let's go to Walmart again. Again implies that we've at least been there at least one time before. So if he says he's able to graft them in again, that's meaning that they were once a part of it, and he's able to bring them back to that. Because like it says, both the branches, the northern and the southern kingdom, were both broken off. So he said he's able to graft them in again if they continue not in unbelief, right? Because verse 20 says, well, because of their unbelief, they were broken off. Now down here in verse 23, it says, and they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted in again, for he's able to graft them in again, right? So like I said, I want to make a point about Paul saying he's the apostle of the Gentiles. Can you grab Acts 13 and 46 real quick? Acts 13 and 46.
Acts chapter 13, 46. Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said it was necessary that the word of Yahweh should first have been spoken to you. But seeing ye put it from you and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles.
Read.
For so have Yahweh commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, that thou shouldest be for salvation unto the ends of the earth. Verse 48. And when the Gentiles heard this, they were glad and glorified the word of Yahweh, and as many as were ordained to eternal life believed.
So when Paul says he's the apostle of the Gentiles, that's because the Most High sent him to the Gentiles. It said that he went to them. It was supposed to come to us first, but he went to them because of our unbelief. He says, lo, I turn to the Gentiles. Now, there's the Gentiles right here is the same ethnos, 1484. This is still applying to the Gentiles, who are the heathen nations, distinct from Israel. So this Gentile here is still not talking about the northern kingdom. It's talking about Gentiles, anybody that's other than an Israelite, the ones that Paul says, my kindred and my brother according to the flesh. If you are not a blood-born Israelite, you are a Gentile. Back to Romans 11. Pick it back up at verse 24.
Verse 24. For if thou wert cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and wert grafted contrary to the nature into a goodly olive tree, how much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree?
So it says that if you were cut out of an olive tree that were wild by nature, meaning that you weren't given the law, statutes, and commandments. We know that Psalms 139, what is it, 119, verse, what is it, Psalms, he showed his word unto Jacob.
Yeah. Hold on.
So we know that he gave the word to Israel, but it says if they would continue not in those things, that they would come into the truth of the word. It says because they grafted in contrary to their nature into a good olive tree, meaning the original olive tree, which is the northern and southern kingdom, right? Go ahead, read verse 25.
Romans 11, verse 25. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in.
Read.
Keep reading, verse 26. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant unto them when I shall take away their sins. As concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes, but as touching the election, they are beloved for the Father's sake.
Well, it says in verse 25, I would not, brother, that you be ignorant of this mystery, that you should be wise in your own conceit, that blindness has happened in part to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. Because like I said, we received the doctrines of men, and we believe that the northern kingdom is the Gentiles, when clearly scripture proves that it's not the Gentiles. It's Gentiles, meaning distinct from Israel. So it's blindness has come in part because we're not receiving the truth of the word, right? Give me Acts 15, and we're gonna close with this. Acts 15 and Acts 15 and 3, and then we're gonna close with Acts 28 and 28.
Okay, Acts chapter 15, verse 3. And being brought caused great joy unto all the brethren.
Read that again, brother, because we froze.
Okay, Acts chapter 15, verse 3. And being brought on their way by the church, they through Phoenicia and Samaria, declaring the conversion of the Gentiles, and they caused great joy unto all the brethren.
And then Acts 28 and 28. So right here is talking about they declaring the conversion of the Gentiles, meaning the Gentiles came into the understanding of the truth, meaning that they came in, they received Hamashiach as their savior. And so Gentiles have the same opportunity that we have at obtaining salvation. And I know a lot of Israel doesn't want to hear that because we've been taught this hate doctrine. But according to the scriptures, you search the scriptures for yourself and go into the Strong's Concordance. This Gentiles is not talking about the northern kingdom, right? Give me that Acts 28, 28, and we're going to end with that.
Or Acts chapter 28, verse 28. He says, be it known therefore unto you that the salvation of Yahweh is sent unto the Gentiles, and they will hear it.
So salvation is sent unto the Gentiles, and they will hear it, because it says, until the blindness is part is coming to Israel to the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So there's Gentiles, like the scripture says, those that are called by my name. So we, like I said, we've been taught the wrong understanding when it comes to Romans 11. That's why Paul said he's the apostle of the Gentiles, because on the road to Damascus, Yahushua sent him to be an apostle to the Gentiles, just like Peter went to Cornelius, who was the first Gentile that came in. So when you search these scriptures and go into these into the Strong's Concordance, you'll get a true understanding of exactly what the scriptures are saying. So the branches that were broken off in Romans 11 is both the northern and the southern kingdom. So those that is not talking about the northern kingdom being broken off and not coming back. So I just wanted to do a quick video on Romans 11 and give an understanding on that. But go back and search the scriptures for yourself and go into the Strong's Concordance, because if you're not, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're believing the doctrines of men. And it says in Isaiah 29 that this is why our hearts are far from him, because we're not receiving the truth of the word. So with that, I say shalom.
Shalom.